So I was standing at the gas pump, thought my glasses were on my head. I was standing at the gas pump yesterday, and where we go grocery shopping, we actually earn points so that we can get price off a gallon. And I was looking at it thinking, okay, 50 cents off a gallon. Do I want to use that with this car? And I was driving our Prius that day, which gets great gas mileage. And I went back and forth and I decided not to use those gas points when I filled up the Prius. I'm going to explain where I'm going with this. But before I do, if you only have a few seconds, in the descriptions, there's a link to our blog, which will get you 95 fun ways to teach math. And I'll show everybody that later. So I've been thinking about this in regards to math. There is a mom in our Homeschooling Olympians group, and she emailed me yesterday as I navigate over to my screen, yesterday or the day before. There it is. She emailed me and she's like, okay, I need some suggestions because my son he's suddenly saying that he hates math, but he loves math. It's his favorite subject. And so I said, hey, do me a favor, shoot me your table of contents and let me take a peek at what you're doing in math. So she sent me over the table of contents, and she's using a program called freeprogram.com. That's not the point. The point is that as I was scrolling through the table of contents, it hit me. Why does he suddenly hate math? This is the stage in math that her son is in fourth grade-ish. I say ish because homeschoolers are ish grades. Every kid has different ages, stages, and abilities depending on where they are and the opportunities that they have in front of them. But this is a stereotypical fourth grade math table of contents, and it looks the same. It looks the same no matter what curriculum you're using. You're going to see place value, you're going to see decimals and percentages and fractions and all that stuff. And the challenge here at this stage in math is that kids have gone from the fun stuff, the counting, the coloring, the color by numbers, skip counting songs, patterns, all this stuff, to suddenly it's just this list of stuff that they need to do. And there's an age, I call it a teeter-totter, where we go from the fun math where you're just counting and comparing sizes and learning about numbers and relationships to where it flips into the stereotypical math curriculum. And it's at that point, you'll recognize it because your kids who have loved counting and love patterns and love taking this many things and adding it together with this many things to see how many are all together. Like suddenly, they don't like it anymore. Math needs to make sense to our kids. It just needs to make sense. When they're little, it's fun because they're learning this is the number 4 and you count by this and you count by that. So what kinds of things can you do? This is where that 97 amazing fun ways to bring math to life comes into place. But let's circle back to the gas pump. So here you are with your 4th, 5th, 12th grader, it doesn't matter what age they are, and you're standing at the gas pump and you see that you can get 50 cents off to the gallon. And so this is where you bring your kids into the conversation. 50 cents off to the gallon. Does this sound like a good deal? And have the quick conversation. Yes, no, talk about why, which decision you made, and then bring the lesson home. On your board, on your whiteboard, make a chart. And this is where you go, okay, this makes sense to actually think through. Math is about understanding how you use what you know to make logical, great decisions in life. It's not about getting the right answer. It's about making the right decisions, using your brain as you're walking through life. And math gives us the skills to make these decisions. So let's talk about the cars that we own. and maybe you have two cars. So we have two cars right now. So we have a gas guzzler and both of our cars are paid off, praise Jesus. And we have a gas guzzler, which is a 2005 Chevy Suburban, which gets between 11 and 14 gallons, miles to the gallon. And then we have a Prius that, there's a funny story to that, but we have a Prius that gets about 50 miles to the gallon if I'm driving it. So here we have our two cars. So you take this, okay, how much is gas right now per gallon? Right now where we live, it is $3.53 a gallon. So you write $3.50 a gallon. And now you're like, well, how much gas does the Prius hold? Does car A hold? And they will likely say, I have no idea. How about the Suburban? I have no idea. So with your kids, you take the price per gallon, look up your cars and see how much gas your cars hold. Then, okay, if the car was completely empty and we filled this car at this dollar amount, how much would that cost? If this car was completely empty and we filled it, how much would it cost? Okay, now let's figure it with that 50 cents off per gallon. Okay, this is how much it would be for 50 cents off. This is how much it would be 50 cents off. And you just walk through this math. You can take it a step further by talking about, well, how far can I drive this car on a full tank of gas? How far can I drive this car on a full tank of gas? And what you're doing is you're taking real world numbers, price per gallon. This number times this many gallons equals this much money. This many gallons equals this many miles that we can drive in the car. You're taking this price and you're deducting, and you're doing all this figuring for the purpose of making the decision about which car is the wiser one to get that 50-cent discount. So the thing when your kids are older, you want to make sure that you've nailed those math facts first. The basic stuff, the fun stuff, the add, subtract, multiply, divide, the basic concepts. How do you do these things? How do you figure out if you're using a dollar amount, which has a decimal point in it, how do you multiply that dollar amount by the total gallons to get a cost on the price? So you're just walking through how you do these things. But when they start to look at their math and they start to go, ugh, that doesn't look fun. Okay, it's not fun. It's practice. And don't just throw curriculum away. But I need you to understand that when you're looking at arithmetic, you're looking at basic math, all the table of contents, if you line them up next to each other, they're basically going to look the same. Practicing addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, place value, decimals, fractions, percentages, some basic statistics, some basic geometry. It doesn't matter which curriculum you use. In order to captivate your kids' hearts when it comes to math, they need to see the real life application. Why does it matter? Why do I need to know fractions? Why do I need to know percentages? Well, the textbook is dry and boring. If you're going to be teaching fractions, you take them to the kitchen, right? If you're going to be teaching decimals, you dump coins on the table and you play store, or you give them an imaginary budget and then send them to Amazon to fill up a cart and get as close as they possibly can to that budget. The reality is that math or any kind of subject, this look of a table of contents, whether it's your math book, whether it's your English book, whether it's your history, science, or whatever book, that looks like no fun at all. And the reality is that we want our kids to have those skills. We want them to have that basic math foundation with the understanding that most of our kids are not mathematicians. They're not scientists. And so they're going to need the fundamental math skills. They need to know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide just to move through life, to balance budgets, to evaluate whether things are a reasonable price or worth the money, those kinds of things. They need to know how to measure. They need to know how to measure to the nearest inch, half inch, quarter inch, 16th of an inch, or in the metrics. Obviously, I'm old school. In the metrics, they'll need to know to the nearest centimeter or millimeter. And so we want to give our kids that solid foundation in math. And then once they start to glaze, once they start to turn zombie-eyed, we need to continue to keep our finger on the basic first. This is so important. Basics first. They have to know those math facts inside and out. So we do that with daily practice, just simple daily practice. You can do that with speed drills. You can do it with sidewalk chalk. You can do it with dry erase markers on the window. You can have a day of flashcards. You can do flashcards every day. Use your creativity, but get those basic facts in first. And then once they get older and math starts to look like a chore, you decide what's best for your kids. In our house, 5 sons, 1 a mathematician, and he looks at that and he salivates. He's so excited to just do the next math lesson. All 4 of the others run for the hills, Batman. They just don't want anything to do with that. And they need to know math. They need to know how to do fractions and percentages and all those things as much as our mathematician does. However, they don't need to do 5,000 math problems. They just don't, because they have other gifts and abilities just like your kids. So focus on the basics. Once the kids start to glaze over, start to look for real life math. And then that things like the gas pump turn into the math lesson for the day. You do not need to pick up a textbook or a worksheet or a drill sheet on a day where you work through all of that math. If you are planning a grocery trip and you have a budget, you can estimate how much you're going to be spending. If you are going to be driving to a family's party and they're more than an hour away, you can talk about how much gas you're going to need, how far you're going to get, etc. You can talk about how long the trip is going to be, if mom drives versus dad's, whether dad drives or whether the older sister or brother drives, etc. There's ways to pull the kids into conversation about these things. And it's in the conversation that the magic happens. So anyway, that's my thought for now. I'm working on stuff with our homeschooling Olympian with her question right now. And if you're asking yourself, what the heck is this homeschool Olympian? There is a link for you to get a glimpse. And then it does say closed for enrollment. All you do is click learn more, and then you book a call, and then we chat about it and kind of see where you're at in homeschooling. It's not a fit for everybody. It's not a good fit for everybody, but for those that it is, it's fantastic. So anyway, that's it. Math at the gas pump. Stick to the basics. Grab those 97 fun ways to teach math. And I think that's it. I'll see you soon.